I'd say when people take follow your passion too literally, I think is like, because you should follow your passion in the sense that you should do what brings you joy and, stuff like that. But let's just say that there's certain unglamorous tasks that you may not be passionate about, but are absolutely essential to getting anything done. Like, I mean, maybe you're a football player and you love scoring goals, but that's your passion. But you can't do that if you're unable to run 8 kilometers a game, if you don't have chemistry with your teammates, if you're not putting in the hard work at the training pitch. Like these are unglamorous things that you may not be excited about, but essential to doing what it is that you actually love.
Hello and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast, where we share hot tips on how to do life and business without losing your mind. I'm your host, Savita Nanjappa, entrepreneur, high-achieving 9-to-5er turned transformational success coach, helping you create a wildly successful business. Come hang out with me and other fabulous humans like you every week for stories and chats packed with a healthy dose of tips, resources, how-tos, and real talk. Side effects may include a happier and more confident you with each passing day. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode on the Success with Savita podcast. Joining me today is Arjun Rastogi, who is the co-founder of Naagin. Naagin is one of India's leading food brands, and they're really popular for their sauce called, aptly, Naagin sauce. Arjun is an experienced business owner with a strong background in finance, operational planning, digital marketing, and brand strategy. He began his career with stints at multinational financial services and accounting firms in the US, such as BlackRock and EY, working across a variety of roles including data integrity, pricing, management, and tax consulting. After moving back to India in 2010, he founded Skarma and Doublethink Media, both new age digital marketing and branding agencies, where he was creating IPs from idea through execution while helping build some of India's largest and most recognizable brands. Arjun has a strong passion for building businesses. As a lifelong hot sauce enthusiast and pepperhead, he was delighted to take the opportunity to combine his passions and create a global hot sauce story right here in India with Naagin. And for the first time on the Success with Savita podcast, we have food brand and we are going to be decoding the growth story of Naagin here. Join me as I talk to Arjun. Hi, and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast. Arjun, I am super excited to have you here because you're my first food brand that I'm speaking to. But over and above that, I'm a fan of Bollywood and I'm convinced Naagin has a Bollywood connection. So with that, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. This is super fun and looking forward to getting into some fun conversations over the next hour.
Yeah. So my first question, and I want to dive right in. I know that I'm still convinced that Naagin has a Bollywood name. But before we go into the name, you've had a very unusual journey. And I would like to hear your story and how did you and your co-founders start Naagin? What was the story there?
Yeah. So we actually you'll hear a slightly different version depending on which one of the three of us you talk to. But I'll tell you how it played out from my side. So a little bit about my background. I graduated in 2008 and was working in finance, and then basically spent the last, the entire 2010s for the most part running uh, agencies, so like digital marketing, graphic design, and content creation sort of companies, creatively inclined in general. And then this opportunity sort of came up, in 2018. So what actually happened is my partner at marketing firm that we're running was Kshitij, and Mikhail and Kshitij actually knew each other from high school. As it turns out, my first agency actually did some of the branding work for Mikhail's pizza brand. So there was like all these fun little connections between the three of us. But Kshitij and Mikhail actually met and just caught up after a little while, and just started discussing about like work and prospects, and one thing led to another, from food content conversations to an active conversation. The like working on a product, and when, so Kshitij kind of put that over to me. He's like, do you want to meet someone about this? I was like, yeah, of course. Like, this sounds great. Three of us met, three of us absolutely hit it off in the sense that we all had very clear ideas of what we could do. And it turns, having never had this conversation before, we all had very similar ideas of how you would kind of go about this. And I think that's one of the fun things is, like everyone wants the same thing, but it's like, do you have the same idea of like how you want to do it? You know, and because there was so much like, overlap and consistency between the way all of us thought, we just said, look, this is something we should really, get into. And soon after that, we got into product development, some packaging work, some branding work, and then, we were off to the races. And that was kind of how it began. So I'd love to say it was all mine, but like no, it actually came to me from my other two partners at the initial stage. And yeah, it's just been a superbly fun journey right from day one, literally. Because I wasn't expecting to start the conversation with, hey, do you want to get into hot sauce? That was interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And also interesting because you come from this agency, this marketing background, nothing to do with food, and then you kind of, get into this. So it's possible for everyone to kind of just, you think you have to stay in your lane, like we say, what's in a name, but how did it's such great recall. So how did you all come up with Naagin?
So Mikhail, actually, I'll give credit to. He had this moment where he was just sort of like watching TV, IPL or something, and he was watching some of the cricketers celebrate with like a Naagin dance after taking like a wicket. And he was just like, that sounds like something that should exist in the world is a Naagin sauce. And he just sort of like penned that down for future reference. And then as luck would have it, months later, he finally found two people who absolutely, heard it and said, that's not crazy. So that was definitely the start. I mean, I think it was a little, I mean, you had to think about it for a minute. It's not your average name. So we had to be sure that it had a good sort of fit with everything that we were trying to do. And I think it really captured the essence of what we're trying to do. You mentioned Sridevi, and that's definitely a part of it. I mean, Nagin, like the word or the idea, the theme is so intrinsically Indian. It's so associated with like fun. And I think that's sort of what we were kind of trying to do as well. We're looking to do an Indian hot sauce. I mean, we're not selling medical equipment. So the idea is to have a little bit of fun maybe with what you're doing as well. We're championing Indian chilies, local ingredients. So the whole intrinsically Indian feel just felt right. And yeah, like you mentioned that it's memorable. I think that's definitely one of the benefits of a name like this. But yeah, like it also just fit the product. I mean, as they say, like saap dasta hai, and the sauce has a little bite because it's a chili sauce. So on so many levels, it just felt like it worked, and we just decided to take the leap of faith.
But I like all the other names as well. So I think it just goes with the theme. There's Kanta, there's Booth, and everything feels like you're really downing very spicy sauce. So yeah, I think a great choice of name, and I think it goes so much with your product line. But moving on, I want to ask you, okay, you guys decide to get together, start this brand, put together this product. What were some challenges that you had around not just the choice of product, but around like product formulation and going back and forth around?
Challenges. I mean, I hope you got a couple of hours for this. No, no, I'm kidding. I think the main one was what we wanted to do. We didn't feel really existed in the market. You have like your very generic level red and green chili sauces, which doesn't tell you about the flavor. It doesn't really tell you about like the chili. It's just as generic as they come. In fact, people care so little about the flavor that they've literally called it by, named it by the color. And then you have a whole bunch of these international versions, which are super well known, like the Tabasco's, like a Mexican chili from an American company making like pepper water vinegar based sauces. And that's doing well here, like, or was doing well here. So we just didn't understand how that flavor profile could be as friendly to Indian food as a purely, in a product imagined with the Indian consumer in mind. So if sriracha you associate with like sort of like an Asian flavor, but you feel like it might work well with like rice or noodles, we wanted to make something that works with bhajia or like dal rice, but also something you can enjoy with like home favorites like that cheese toast or something like that. So we wanted it to be something that just works for people, and that meant taking a slightly different approach towards coming up with the flavors. Now, the fun part in this is it wasn't like we had a target to aim at, in the sense that the category wasn't formed as such, where it's like, okay, this is exactly what people do, and like this is what the flavor expectation is from the customer. There was no expectation. So we had pretty much a free rein in terms of interpreting how we felt the sauces could be or should be. We decided to go with a Sankeshwari chili from Maharashtra, understated. We're also, Bombay based, Maharashtra based. So we felt that that was a good connect. Our chef was super comfortable and, with the chili, and he's known about it for a while. It was nice, slow release of flavor. And then the Bhut Jolokia is obviously maybe the world's most popular chili, and definitely has so much Indian cachet that we just felt for the real spice lovers out there, we had to do something on the really spicy end. So we knew the starting points were those, but the flavors sort of like developed along the way. We definitely made scores of sauces, like, I mean, maybe even close to 100, maybe even past 100, but probably at least 70, 80 versions of the sauce before we finally decided, look, these are the two that we absolutely love, and this is what we should go ahead with. But yeah,
Narrowing down and making final decision. And who are the taste testers?
it should be not easy, but it weirdly it turned, or maybe not weirdly, it just turned out to be a very smooth process. Like I think one of the things, one of my first lessons moving from, like, say, service industry by and large to the food side is you can have similarly, like just an objective, everyone likes this, and sure, food is subjective, but there's some things that are just good and like everyone loves it. And we saw that in, the test that people did, like you'd see like the eyes widen, you'd see like the smile creep up, and you're like, okay, cool, like that's the reaction you wanted to get. And yeah, it was surprisingly easy to finalize on the version. But along the way, when you first got like five directions to go in, yeah, it was definitely a question on how you kind of play that out. Do you go with like a fruity style? Do you go with something else? Like, but the consensus seemed to work out quite positively. And yeah, I think we all just loved the same things. That was another really good positive early.
Yeah. But although I don't think that when you have the sauce, anyone's smiling, it's more like your eyes widen and your tears maybe on the spices.
Yeah, that definitely the booth can have that effect of people who are like not so spice inclined. But the original is really, like mild to medium, very family friendly. Kanta bomb is somewhere in between. So we try to come up with a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah. You can tolerate it. I've tasted it, so I can say it is, I can tolerate it. But I'm South Indian, and of course, our taste level of, toleration for chili is, I think, higher. I'm not sure. But yeah, so now you had this product moving on, and you narrowed down and you said, this is it. What came next? What was your go to market?
I think the idea was to get more early feedback from people, but people who weren't necessarily, say, part of the process. Sometimes you get attached to things when you're doing it yourself, or like, I don't know how much of my family's input I want to take because they're predisposed to wanting to be positive about stuff, like, yeah. And maybe sometimes what you need is a brutal, sort of assessment from like a third party with like no vested interest or anything like that. And I think what we decided to do is we participated in a beer festival in 2019, earlier in the year, and there was like a little market with a whole bunch of new products. So we just got a stall there, and we tried to get a whole bunch of samples, and that was maybe the most, honestly, one of the most gratifying but also informative experiences for us to have early, because we tweaked the products like quite a bit between that time to the eventual launch, going with the feedback that we got from folks. So that was like super helpful. That early feedback definitely helps. Like, I suppose in tech you refer to it as like the MVP. But in this case, we were a little further down the road. But it was really good to be able to get those insights. It just helps along the way.
Okay. So you had that, and I hear this from quite a few brands that they go to and they talk to consumers, of course. What happened next was COVID, right? So how did you kind of navigate through it and then go the online route? How was that experience?
The experience, I mean, clearly that was something no one saw coming. It was like one of those challenges that you kind of learn from your peers a little bit because you see left and right of you, like what are people doing? What are they able to mobilize at a time of like, extreme, confusion? And then online is what sort of picked up first for obvious reasons. And then we were kind of in that position where we're like, okay, cool, this is great because I mean, in the sense that having a food brand in the pandemic is not maybe the worst thing in the world. Yet at the same time, you don't really sit and guzzle down like, tons of hot sauce all by itself. Like it's a pairing product and you got to get people to try it. And the last thing you could do is go to someone and say, like, could you please put down your mask? I'd like, like you to try something. So we had to get a little creative on the marketing side. We had to get creative with content and sort of show what the experience was like, you know, or like say the versatility of the product, like use cases and stuff like that. So I think you just automatically start finding different things that you can try and highlight when the one sensory sort of thing that you can't do, like you got to navigate around it. So luckily people were in a super experimental mood at the time. And yeah, and people sort of just loved the product from there and gave us tons of feedback, which we eventually converted into more products. So just one, like really, an exercise that like you try and make the best of what, the chips that you're kind of given. So no pun intended.
Yeah. So I want to ask you here, did you plan to go online, or the plan was to go just into stores, into retail, into distribution?
Yeah, the plan absolutely from day one was to go online. We first launched on our website. Soon we got onto Amazon. And then from there, at the best pace that we could, we kind of started to talk to the neighborhood stores and stuff like that. This was just before COVID. So that got a little more complicated over time. And then, but in the early days, it was just more about like trying to connect with your local shop and just kind of getting him to take a punt, take a chance. Like you hear no a lot, but that's okay. Like I think that's just part of the startup experience.
Yeah, true. And I had to ask this question because we're talking about sauce. So, what's the secret sauce for the popularity and growth of Nagin, according to you?
I think by and large, like a lot of what's happening in the grocery aisles, and this is sort of what we noticed when we were doing like the pre-launch research, for the companies, we just noticed that they were largely the same products, but just made by different companies with different packaging, different price points, but it's the same flavors, it's the same four or five things, it's the same items everywhere. And we just said, look, like for obvious reasons, like I mean, people are trying to sell you what they know they can sell. But we just thought that we'd take a slightly different approach and said, let's try and make products that we think people will love. Each product may not be for everyone. It's not going to be that lowest common denominator, like a simple mayo or a mustard or a ketchup. Like, we're trying to do something, with different innovative flavors. So everything will not be for everyone, but we just trusted that like, a good product with good ingredients, a good quality, good flavors is something that people will gravitate towards. So the long way to say, I think people were just open to experimentation. And I think food is just one of those things. Like I've never met anyone who's decided that they've already got the best food figured out for the rest of their lives. So, I mean, you always want to try the new restaurant, you want to try the new dish, you want to try the new product. So, food is just one of those beautiful things. So, we just felt that that would work in our favor. And it kind of did. People are super responsive to that. People love trying new things. And eventually, like the spicing client stumbled upon us first, but then it kind of got wider. But that's been a really really gratifying experience. I think people just wanting new things is super helpful. I think the other one is just be trying to treat people the way you would want to have been treated. I know it's like a pretty basic thing to say, but like, needless to say, I think we've all had one or two, let's say, uninspirational customer service experiences with various folks in the past. And like, one of the things you find yourself thinking when you're dealing with those situations is, if I was on the other side, I would have done ABC. And like, this is one of those opportunities when you are on the other side. So the idea was just sort of like communicate with people the way you thought you would have liked it. And even if it's like, something that you disagree on, there's nothing that you can't find a way through. So I think that's also definitely helped, is just people, maybe appreciating uh, a positive way to resolve things.
Yeah, I'm very excited that you're sharing about customer service, the experience, and delivering a qualitative experience, because not many people talk about that. I come from a service background, so this is very close to my heart. But moving on from there, how has been you're a startup, so I have to ask you this. How has been the fundraising experience? And would you like to share like a few tips for other entrepreneurs who are in this space trying to raise funds? Anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say like the part that's like not rocket science is people like, if you're building something good, I think that definitely helps. Like if you've got a good product, you've got a good team, you've got good experience, or best yet for investors, like if you've got great sales, like these are all things that like people sort of like gravitate towards. And honestly, like fundraising is, in many ways, you're finding a partner in every way, in a sense as well. So it's something that, both parties have to be comfortable with. You kind of like, develop a relationship with these people, and they're going to be your biggest backers. So, it's something that just happens, but you got to work at it like anything else. And I would say, if I had to give any piece of advice, and again, this is nothing new, but it's just one of those that like rings more true once you've gone through the process, is that everything takes longer than you imagine. So the sooner you start, the better. And whether it's creating a deck, reaching out to people, having discussions, eventually, maybe if you reach like due diligence or something like that, it can all be really time consuming. And when you're also sort of running the business, you sometimes don't, like necessarily plan for all the additional stuff that comes your way as part of the process. So in a nutshell, I'd just say start early and expect that it'll be more work than you imagined, and it'll take longer than you might imagine.
Okay, great advice. I would agree with you. That's not one often heard, though you said that people have heard this, but it's not often heard. Usually the advice is expect to hear a lot of no's as well. So I think great advice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And now coming back to Nagin, I'm sure you have a lot of stories about Nagin, but is there a fun one that you'd like to share with us about Nagin, the audience, clients experiencing it?
There's no one maybe, but there's like a series, and it's a wide assortment of just, like light moments that come your way. Like, in your personal life, like we've all of our friends will sort of just like bust out a dance or something when they see you, like, and it's just so funny every time, because you're just like shaking your head and just like, or laughing along with them. And that's sort of like a funny thing that just happens casually. I think the fun one is also when a really good story, I think, was like when we first sort of decided to do Naagin. We were just like, so guys, are we doing this? And then I just responded with like the snake emoji, and promptly, got the same response back from everyone in the WhatsApp group. And that's been part of the our WhatsApp group name for like the longest time. And yeah, it's just one of those funny things. Every time you're searching for the group, you got to look for the emoji. And like, yeah, it's just one of those, it's a weird, fun reminder that like, you're doing something that's like bringing you joy, and like, sort of like a reminder of the moment where it was, just sort of started. But yeah, I don't know if that counts as a single story. It's just, it brings a smile to my face every time.
But so far, what has been like the best business lesson you've learned? Again, many, but something that comes like top of mind.
I think you have to just get used to being uncomfortable. And the second you settle into a routine, you know you could probably be doing something more. And then in order to do that something more, you have to do something different or you have to add like a new layer. And each time you're trying to do something different, it involves all the setup work required to get it going. So I think you have to just embrace being slightly uncomfortable, but not in like a really negative way. It's not abject misery or anything. It's just you have to but embrace the unpredictability of it and like and just enjoy the fact that no 2 days are ever really the same. I mean, I think one thing that's like guaranteed when you're running your own business is, at least for the most part, is it's really hard. Like each year is really different, and it doesn't feel like you did 20 years, but like I repeated the first one 19 times. Like you never have that feeling because the scale, the challenges, the situation, everything is so dynamic that it just keeps you on your toes and, just sort of like always in a moment, like there's something happening. So I think the idea is you have to just get used to that. It isn't like a, start at this time, end at this time, and then just shut off sort of thing. I'm sure there's people who have managed to pull that off, and hats off to them. But for the most part, in the early days, that's very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are managing to pull that off, especially if you're the owner of your business.
I mean, if you look at Instagram, it looks like a whole bunch of people are managing to pull it off. But
No, I thought the biggest meme is you exchange your 9 to 5 for a 24/7, or people just,
I agree with that one. Absolutely.
yeah, it's the 9 to 5ers who have it good because they can switch off and say, I'm done, right? But business is different. But yeah, true, absolutely. And I think in terms of a business lesson that you learned, that's true. And it remains like that. What's the one thing you wish you knew when you started?
So you said specifically about the business, right? Like the Naagin business in general. Oh, in general, I would say I wish I knew the pandemic was coming. We would have surely made a million changes. That doesn't count. Okay, cool. I think I'll cheat a little bit on this one because it's not something like you don't know, but it's just one of those where you kind of you figure this out over the course of just working on things. Is when you're doing sort of like a service business, sometimes like the agency business, for example, you could have a particular type of product or like particular design or something at say 7 in the evening, and if someone doesn't like it, you could spend many hours over the into the wee hours of the morning, and when someone else wakes up at 7 in the morning, you could have something completely different. And it's this amazing thing that like sort of checked all the boxes. But there's not much you can do overnight, like in a product business. Like there's so many different threads to connect, like whether it's, sort of like the actual production of it or the inventory planning or the logistics of it or whatever the case might be. Like there's so much actually going on that to make any major meaningful change, it takes time. And surely in food, because you kind of have to maintain certain like hygiene levels and things like that. So you can't really just, I mean, it's not to undermine anyone else's, sort of the way it is. And in fact, I love it, but like it's not as simple as change 5 colors and now we've got 5 products. So each one comes with its own little challenges. But I think the idea generally being that it takes time to effect change. So you try and move as fast as you can every day, but you got to kind of be patient and see things develop in front of you. But yeah, that's what I'd say is something.
Okay, sure. That's a good one. And my next, I know I've asked you what's the best business lesson, what did you wish you know, and all of that. What's overrated advice in business? Is there one? Yeah, the most overrated advice.
Is this something like general or in applied? I'd say when people take follow your passion too literally, I think is like, because you should follow your passion in the sense that you should do what brings you joy and stuff like that. But let's just say that there's certain unglamorous tasks that you may not be passionate about, but are absolutely essential to getting anything done. Like, I mean, maybe you're a football player and you love scoring goals, but that's your passion. But you can't do that if you're unable to run 8 kilometers a game, if you don't have chemistry with your teammates, if you're not putting in the hard work at the training pitch, like these are unglamorous things that you may not be excited about, but it's essential to doing what it is that you actually love. Or like even, like, so I recently got I got a puppy, and like I love like it's great, it's fantastic, and you love everything you love about having a dog, but that means you got to go for walks. It means you got to be responsible to like take them to the vet. Like there's so many things that you're not excited about, but it's all. So I think what I'm trying to say is like if you take it too literally and you only do the fun things, that's bad advice. But if you appreciate that the joy is in the eventual outcomes, but like you have to enjoy the process a little bit more. Like you have to convince yourself that the process and the struggle is as much part of the joy of the journey as anything else. And if that's where you are, then absolutely follow every single passion. Like, but until then, I think it's probably good advice to put a little asterisk on that comment and just, yeah, there's some other things involved as well.
Yeah, preparing for all the other not fun parts of your, chasing your passion is key. Reminds me with your puppy story of parenting as well. So that's another. I mean, you can love being a parent, but there are crazy days and there are hard days. All right. And before we move on to you, I have just one question about Naagin. What's next for Naagin? You're in a really exciting phase at this time. It's still early days, I guess, but what's the next couple of years looking like? Anything that you can share?
I wish I could make a really good prediction for 2 years ahead, but I think it like so much changes on a regular basis. But I think in a nutshell, we've got a whole bunch of exciting new products coming out that we're, excited to bring to market later this year and again next year. We, as you can imagine, is part of the continuing mission of the company to always expand its footprint, like sort of online and offline. So try and get into more stores, kind of, do more, marketing purposes, sharing information with customers, things like that. And then there's some promising export conversations, which we just hope sort of work out. And yeah, like, and for the rest of it, I think it would be cool if people just followed us and found out. Like, I mean, we're always happy to share all the goings ons of whatever's up.
Awesome. I'm sure all of that is definitely going to happen for all of you. With that, tell me, your experience as a marketer must have helped a lot. Did that help a lot with the growing and scaling of Naagin?
I think whatever experience you have helps. Like if you've ever done budgeting, that's great. If you've ever set up a large scale project, that's awesome. If you've ever had to own team, it could be as granular as that. That's also awesome. Recruitment experience is great. Like literally anything and everything you could have ever done really helps. So like the more diverse experiences you've had, it'll just help you at the early stage of like starting. But all that said, like you'll figure everything out. Like if once you got to do it, you'll find a way to make it happen. So there's nothing that you can't do if you put your mind to it.
Okay. And now for you, tell me about a day in your life. I know you said it's different, every day is different, but what does an average day in the life of a Naagin co founder? I'm saying Naagin again because I still can't get over the name, of course, but yeah, what does a day in your life look like?
Oh, this is gonna be really boring. Maybe so. I think you kind of know where this is going. You wake up, you walk the dog, come back. There's coffee, some emails, go through the work day, finish up again, walk the dog, dinner, maybe spend some time with the folks. Sometimes fight a losing battle of staying away from screens, but yeah, just try and get some me time at the end of the day, and then sort of repeat.
All right. And with that, I do have one last question for you. What do you tell yourself? How do you keep going when you hear all those no's and rejections? Maybe even customer complaints or people hated your product. Like, what's your hack for getting yourself back on track and keep going ahead?
I think at this point you've just sort of like heard a lot of them before. So you're better at dealing with each one. But each time someone's unhappy, it's kind of like, it's not a great feeling. But you also understand that at the end of the day, it's food. It is subjective, and you can't please everyone all the time. But each time you get something, like, say, some feedback that you didn't love about, like that they didn't love about the product, you'll hear something from someone who just, it just makes your day. So I mean, I'd say it just balances each other out. I think the idea is to not overthink anything too much, let it sort of trouble you, unless it's really great feedback, and then you absolutely should do something about it. So I mean, I think we look at each one of those as an opportunity to learn something and better understand the different types of folks and perspective out there. And I think over time, you just sort of piece enough of this together to just get a better idea of people. But it's not really, it just motivates you to do better next time. Like, you just want to have a better product, or like do even better customer service, or like deliver it even faster, or just like all you want to do is just like make customers happy, because like that's really why you're doing it. Like, if you just wanted to make a hot sauce for yourself, you could probably whip it up in your kitchen and spend your life doing that. But you chose to do it to bring it out to a whole bunch of people. And yeah, like I said, like, a little earlier also, like, you just want to do the things that you love about your own experiences. So like, whenever you get great experiences with other brands, with other products, you kind of want to see how much of that you can learn and apply to what you're doing. So I think we just try our best to make everything a learning experience, as opposed to just something that to be, down about. Yeah.
Great advice. And I think you've been really, open and shared so much with us. And there's so much to take away from this conversation. I'm saying just in general, as an entrepreneur and approach to dealing with the daily happenings of entrepreneurship, because it's all high and low and all of that. So thank you so much for your time today and for being with us. People can find Naagin online, on Amazon, through your website, anywhere else that you recommend?
They can check us out in stores. We're in Nature's Basket, Reliance, Food Hall, Ratnadeep, Namdari. Depending on where you are in the country, you'll probably find us at a major grocery chain next to you. And yeah, that's where we are. Thank you so much also for having me. This is excellent. I don't know which part of this would be exciting for folks, but I'm really glad that you found value in doing this. And like, thank you for, having this conversation. This is awesome. Really appreciate it.
All of it was filled with value. So thank you. Yeah. So thank you for being here and for this conversation today. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode and you want more, you can go to the show notes on my website, which is successwithsavita.com/podcast. If you like what you've heard so far, I would be grateful to you if you could leave me a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast, and share with a friend who may find this useful. You can also follow me on my Instagram at successwithsavita and DM me any questions you may have, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Until the next episode, believe in yourself and all the best to your success.